What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, I have a sneak peek for the new brawler Sirius, which will be coming with the update. He's an ultra legendary brawler and the 100th brawler inside of Brawl Stars. He's very hype. He seems very strong as well. Let's go into the basics then. So with his health, he has 7,400, which is very similar to other controllers like Mr. P. As you can see, I've got shield gear on, making him even tankier. So his main attack works in a funky way, definitely a lot different to many others. You can see he's got this kind of throw a bomb, and he has a normal shot. So let's just try and fire off. Well, I can't just fire off the normal shot, but you know what I mean. I can just fire off the thrower shot though. They both deal 1,200 damage, but as you can see, both of them can hit for 2,400 together. But there's definitely a bit of a skill cap and a learning curve here, because again, like if someone's close, you need to aim that bomb a lot closer. If someone's farther away, you know, there's a lot of like aim to consider and think about with Sirius, which I really like. I really like that kind of depth behind the brawler. So in terms of his range, so he's got, in terms of his main attack, just the single shot, it is very similar to brawlers like Mr. P again and Squeak, around that range. So you know, it's not terrible range, but it's not exactly the greatest considering he's a controller, but that additional thrower will give him a little bit extra range. So again, kind of just a bit more than like a Mr. P, for example. So his supercharge is, well, you get a faster supercharge with his second star power, which we'll go into later, but basically it's about 4 hits for every single shadow that you want to spawn, and then 12 hits for all 3 shadows. So you can only save up 3 shadows at once, but you can spawn up to 6 shadows in a game. So here you can see, because there's no other like actual enemies, it's just going to spawn more Siriuses, but I don't think that would ever happen unless there was a Sirius on your other team. But again, you can of course charge your super up a lot faster if you're hitting both your thrower attack and the long attack. You can spawn another 3 Siriuses, which is really cool. Also, I'm going to be going through the gadget star powers and everything like that, but I need to go through the Hypercharge. So the Hypercharge, they've just literally enabled it right now. We get to see what it is. So the Hypercharge, I think they have more health and more damage. So you can see they've got 1,000 more health, and they're definitely dealing a lot more damage. I don't know how much extra damage they're dealing. 840. I can't see what the other guys are doing. Let's fire them over this way. Also with your super, by the way, you can direct them to wherever you want. So for example, if you want to throw them over here, they can go over here. If I want to direct them to go over here, they can go over here. But also, if you just press it, they'll just circle around you instead. So I guess there's definitely some advantages for some of it. Like for example, what you could do is what a lot of people do with, I don't know, like Nita Bears for example. What we could do is you could tell, okay, so go over there, don't get shot by the incoming enemies, and then once we gain a little bit of control so they don't die straight away, then I can tell them to push forward and go attack. So yeah, you could actually like build up an army if you think about it and just destroy people that way. So there's a lot of learning curves with Sirius. He looks very fun but very strong. So now moving on to his gadgets and star powers, starting off with gadget number 1. It's called A Star Is Born. So with this gadget, where you can aim it as well, where if you hit this onto an enemy, it will spawn whatever they are. So for example, you hit this gadget onto a bull, you will spawn a bull clone. Again, because there's no enemies in here, it'll just spawn as Sirius. But this is really good. It'll also slow them for 30% for 3 seconds, so the bot can get that extra bit of damage. I think this can be a really strong gadget, and especially it reminds me of like Mr. P's porter in a way. Like it just spawns something on the edge of the attack. So again, for example, if there's a single firing brawler like a Piper or just a sniper, if you put a bot on top of them, they are just going to get absolutely destroyed. So this is a really strong gadget. So now moving on to gadget number 2. It's called Master of Shadows. So what this gadget will do, it will heal up all of your shadows 50% and bring them back towards you. So I think this will be actually a really good one, because with the shadows, there are some brawlers that can probably take them down pretty quickly, and especially if well, you're going to get more value if the shadows are of brawlers that are of a certain amount of health. So again, if you're like using your super against like Frank, it's going to be very tanky and you're going to get a lot of value out of it. So here we'll click the gadget. It's going to bring them back towards you and heal them for 50%. So a really useful gadget with a short cooldown. I think this one could be pretty toxic as well. So now moving on to star power number 1, we have Dusk Runner. So with this star power, it's very simple. Your shadows will get a 15% movement speed buff, which doesn't sound like anything crazy, but I guess you can use your shadows to overwhelm the opponents quite easily with this buff. They'll just be patrolling an area much quicker. Again, it's a useful star power, not anything crazy though. So now moving on to star power number 2, called the Darkest Star. So with this star power, basically your Shadow Strike, it is called. It took me a while to figure that out, but basically you've got 2 attacks in one, right? So your Shadow Strike is the long attack. It is the moon attack. So that will charge up your super for 2 hits instead of 1. So it just doubles the supercharge rate. So essentially, if you hit both the thrower attack and the long attack, you're going to be getting 3 shots of supercharge rate instead of 2. That's really going to help you out, and any star power that's like that is normally the better one to go to, because it just charges you super faster. The other one doesn't feel as powerful. Again though, it depends on how easy it is to outrange Sirius in a real fight. This attack as well is also pretty slow, so quite easy to avoid. It's not got the longest range. I feel like maybe you might be building up your super more through the thrower way. We'll have to wait and see, but it's still probably the better star power. So now let's go through the build which I think will be best for him upon release. Again, I'll be pushing him to whatever prestige when he's first released, so we get a true idea, but I feel like a Star is Born is going to be the better gadget overall. He's got a longer cooldown. I think this could be a good one, especially if you're up against like tankier brawlers, so you can get a lot of value out the healing, but just summoning a shadow just literally out of nowhere, well, not out of nowhere, got to hit the shot. It just seems really cool. It's just a free shadow. Why wouldn't you want it? And then in terms of star powers, I don't really think Dusk Runners is a good star power at all. 15% movement speed. I don't think that's really going to do too much, personally. Maybe it becomes really toxic. We'll have to wait and see. But the Darkest Star just feels like it's going to be the better star power overall. Just buffs your supercharge rate, means more shadows, just means that's probably the way you could... Well, the super is basically everything with Sirius because he doesn't deal a ton of damage. And then you just probably want to stick with your generic damage and shield gear. And then the Hypercharge looks like it's probably worthwhile just because it gives you more health and more damage. Why wouldn't you want that? So I also didn't go through his super in general, so you can see here the stats for Sirius. You can see there's a faster movement speed. His shadow damage is only 55% of what the brawler normally does, and 70% of the brawler's health originally. So yeah, there's a lot to really go through here, but it looks really powerful. These shadows are going to be very toxic. So now let's go through all of his 3 versus 3 game modes for Sirius and talk about how strong I think he's going to be in all of them. So starting off with Gem Grab, I think throwers aren't particularly meta inside of Gem Grab, but control brawlers can be fairly decent as well. He's not going to be anything crazy in Gem Grab, but because I think he's going to be a very strong brawler, he'd have to be like near the top of the A tier. I also think his shadows are going to be really good at just pressuring lanes and really good for pressuring the enemy gen carrier, especially if they're single shot. So I envision probably if Sirius is going to be very strong, you'll see brawlers like Penny, Janet, those brawlers that can pierce through the shadows become pretty strong in the meta. So yeah, I think he'll be fairly decent in Gem Grab, but not anything crazy. With Heist, I actually think he could be fairly underrated, mainly because yes, he might lack a little bit of damage sometimes, but with Sirius, especially if there's an aggressive brawler coming towards you, normally they are of higher health, so think of like Kaze, Melody, etc. Your first gadget can just spawn. It's going to be a free hit, but if you're basically trying to defend, right, it's going to be a free hit and you're going to get a free shadow from them at all times, so that can help you defend as well. I think you could overwhelm the opponents quite easily on Heist maps, and there are a few good throw maps for him as well. I think he'll be pretty strong in Heist. Bounty is probably going to be one of his weaker game modes, mainly because I get the feeling most other throwers should be able to beat Sirius in a 1 versus 1. It's kind of going to be like Willow, right? Like, yeah, Sirius is going to be good against most brawlers, but then against its other counterparts in other throwers, probably going to get out battled. Also, there's a lot of long range maps, probably going to be good on maps like Layer Cake, but outside of that, don't think Sirius will be too strong on Bounty. With Brawl, I think this has to be one of Sirius's best game modes because, yes, he doesn't exactly have like a knockback or anything to defend himself against these aggressive brawlers in the Brawl meta, But again, there's a lot of tanks, there's a lot of assassins, and those are the brawlers you want to be targeting for his shadows, probably, right? The more health, probably the more better those shadows are going to be. So Brawl should be strong. There's also a lot of really good throw maps in Brawl, so he's a hybrid type brawler. I think he's perfect for Brawl. Hot Zone is also going to be a very good game mode for Sirius because, again, there's a few good maps for throwers, but I think his shadows will get a lot of pressure, especially on the Hot Zone. You can tell them to patrol the Hot Zone. You can tell them to try and spawn camp the enemies if need to be. Also, he will be good at being on the zone. He'll be a decent zone time brawler because he's got decent health. But also, if your whole team has died and you're trying to regain back control, it can be pretty hard for most brawlers, but he's literally got a thrower built into him as well. So I think he'll be great in Hot Zone. And finally, we have Knockout. So Knockout, I think, will probably be his weakest game mode, mainly because Knockout is a very, very passive game mode. I think a lot of wall breakers are strong here. Throws aren't exactly the greatest. I don't think he has the range to really compete. So yeah, Knockout and Bounty are going to be really weak for him. Okay, so now let's talk about his just overall strength and how strong I think he's going to be in the meta. So his Hypercharge, I don't think gets released with him, right? But I think as a standalone brawler, he's going to be very, very strong. As always, you know, as a 100th brawler inside of a game, as an ultra legendary brawler, I don't think he's got the skill, the skill required for the other legendary brawler, Kaze. That took a long people, even the pros, to realize Kaze's strengths. I think the strength will be quite obvious from the get-go. I think he'll be insane. I don't know whether he'll be completely broken just yet, but I get the feeling he's going to be very, very strong, especially after testing him out a bunch. He just has to be strong. There's just surely no way, again, that Supercell would release the 100th brawler and it be a flop and him be really, really weak. He's definitely going to be on the stronger side. I'm going to predict S tier. I know it's very boring, but I was right a few times, especially when people were really, really harsh on brawlers like Pierce and Glober. They didn't think they would be good, and yet they're both S tier. So I think Sirius is going to be S tier as well. I think people just got to get used to the way that his main attack works, how to use his shadows, the best brawlers to try and target when you're trying to get these shadows. And because you can get up to 6 of them in a game, that could be very, very overwhelming for the opponents. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I'm also going to be doing another brawler sneak peek because I'm not entirely sure when the update is dropping. It's either tomorrow or Wednesday, so I'll be doing another sneak peek tomorrow, guys. But again, we're ready for this trophy grind, whatever you want to call it, prestige grind. We're ready and we're fighting for it. So that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.